Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on the new role of tech in agency preparedness. The Amelia team is proud to be co-presenting with our friends from Productive Parks. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few technical details. So we will be recording this webinar and you'll all receive a copy via email within the next couple of days. As the audience, you'll be placed on mute for the duration of the presentation, but you do see that there is a question panel within the control panel, which you can type in your questions, and there'll be a question period at the end of the webinar, so we'll be able to get to those at the end. And we'll also open it up to you guys so we can you can raise your hand and we can unmute you guys and we can ask those questions. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. So here are your presenter for today's webinar. My name is Allison. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Amelia. For those of you who don't know us, we're the company behind the innovative Parks and Recreation registration software, SmartRec. My team specifically is responsible for building an ecosystem of tech and business partners with the goal of growing Amelia's visibility and enabling our clients to build their own tech tool belt. I'll pass it over to Will for his introduction.
Thanks, Allison. My name is William Owens. I've been here at Amelia for 6 years. I'm in more of a helper role today, so here to listen and learn from our friends at Productive Parks and of course from Allison herself, and then I'll be fielding the Q&A at the end of the session. Over to Steve.
Thank you, Will. My name is Steve Dittemore, and prior to founding Productive Parks, I worked in the Parks and Rec field as an IT director and consultant for over 20 years. My primary role in Productive Parks is front-end development and user interface. Off to Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Smith, and I am one of the co-founders of Productive Parks. And just like Steve, I spent 20 years running IT departments and working as an IT consultant to Parks and Rec agencies. And I was the original developer of the software, and I'm still in charge of product development and the sales areas.
Thanks, guys. So over the last couple of months, people, industries, and businesses around the world have really been trying to figure out what normal is going to look like when we come out of the COVID tunnel. We all know that there's going to be a lasting impact, but the reality is we don't know what it will look like. And the truth is, it's probably going to be pretty different for each community. What we do know right now, however, is that we need to start putting some pieces in place to start creating that sense of stability today and pieces in place to help protect against the next emergency that will inevitably happen sometime down the line. Whether predicted or unpredicted, big or small, the good news is that technology is a critical tool in the war against that unexpected. Before getting into the thick of things, let's just review a couple of topics that we'll be covering today. We're going to start off by understanding that behavioral shift caused by COVID-19 for your residents and for your agency. We're then going to go into a little detail on how modern technology will help create that sense of stability around our operations. We'll jump into maintenance management and how that's a crucial piece in agency preparedness. And finally, we'll wrap it up with some concrete tips to help you identify the best tech for your community and your agency. So over the last few years, whether personally or professionally, we've all seen an increasing shift in in-store purchase to online. And the pandemic has accelerated that shift significantly. US e-commerce sales went up 25% in March alone, and that has been continuing to do so. It's a shift that's extended far beyond the products and services we expect, like clothing and books, but includes the vast majority of products and services, like even your groceries. Now more than ever, it's become crucial to meet your consumers online where they're actively searching and shopping. That behavioral shift is true for your residents. So let's take a look at what that journey might look like when your resident is purchasing an activity. So meet Beth. She typically plays soccer in the summer, but because of social distancing measures, the league has decided to cancel the season, so Beth wants to try something different. When Beth decides she wants to find an activity, the first thing she's going to do is open her computer, take out her phone, and either search Google or head to her local Park and Rec agency website. Before making a decision, Beth will want to know the specifics about the website, about the activity, such as location, time, duration, and price. She's also going to want to know if there's any discounts available and what that registration process might look like. Once she's finished all of her research, Beth is going to be ready to make her decision. And she's going to expect that the registration process be as simple as buying a book on Amazon, because again, that's what we've come to expect. That shift in behavior is not only true for resident shopping experience, but it's also very true for your agency. I'm going to pass it over to Steve so he can speak to how your agency has changed due to the COVID-19.
Thanks, Allison. So as Allison just spoke about, over the last several years, the primary method for shopping is moved to online, and the majority of consumers now expect this as an option. In the parks and recreation field, COVID-19 has kind of opened our eyes to the benefits and some would say requirements of kind of newer online technologies to support your operations. And while a lot of agencies have already started to make this move, many more have kind of been forced to really quickly pivot and try to implement more powerful and efficient software solutions. So this crisis has been a time of firsts across all industries. And even after several months, the situation is still evolving. Without exception, all of the agencies that we've spoken with have had some kind of budget cuts, which are affecting their day-to-day operations as well as their long-term and mid-range budgeting plans. Agencies are faced with having to immediately address the need to work remotely. And when we open our facilities back up, no one's really exactly sure how things are going to play out. It's very possible that we'll have to pivot again this fall if there's another mandated shutdown. Your recreation activities and programming has been shifted to virtual programming. And even though you may not have customers in your facilities at this time, your agency still needs to keep up with parks and facility maintenance. A few weeks ago, I had asked one of our customers how his staff was doing with their workload during the shutdown, and his response was, well, the grass keeps growing. So while the country might be in a state of shutdown, we know that many of your operations are not. And this makes it evident that efficient maintenance and fiscal management is more important than ever as we try to start to get back to what our new normal is going to be. And with that, I'll turn over to Allison again.
So how can tech help us adapt to that behavioral shift? I promise that this is the most technical part of the webinar, but I think in order to understand the technology of today, it's useful to take a step back and look at its evolution. Because the reality is there's still a lot of software being sold today that's built on that old technology. So I'm going to start us off on the complete left-hand side under hosted solutions, which is the equivalent of your rec department taking all registrations from one central computer. So if you had multiple computers in one center, you'd have to manually enter the data into each one. Obviously, this is extremely time-consuming and highly inefficient. You can imagine how many data discrepancies would occur in this scenario. Thankfully, with the democratization of the internet, this type of technology is now rarely used. We'll then move over one column to the local server model, where several computers in one location are connected together and can share information. Therefore, we avoid that step of manually entering the data on multiple computers. One of the major inconveniences of this model is that the solution is only available through that local server and therefore not accessible via the internet. Meaning that if you suddenly had to start working from home, you wouldn't be able to access the information because it's only stored locally. Although this is becoming less and less popular, it's still fairly common today, and I have a feeling that there's a few of you on this webinar who can attest to its inconveniences. With the popularization of the internet, there became a need to externalize the data because users were no longer limited to a known pool of people physically in one location. The idea was then to move the installation of each piece of software over the internet rather than having it installed on every computer. This model is known as the cloud. And software using this technology is still very present today. The major benefit of this technology is that you're no longer limited to one location because the software is available wherever the internet is accessible. The downfall to this type of cloud technology is that there exist multiple versions of that same software, and often organizations will have to invest a lot of money and resources to maintain it. Thankfully, there's been a rapid evolution in that cloud technology. which is also known as SaaS, which stands for Software as a Service. When we're talking about most modern technology, we're talking about true SaaS and elastic SaaS, which are the two far right columns on the diagram. There are two very important takeaways from this type of technology. One is that there's only one version of the software. Therefore, that means for you guys, no more version 13.1.2. Blah, blah, blah. Everyone benefits from a software maintenance and improvement without any interruption to their day-to-day, because they happen through small increments on a daily basis. The second major takeaway is that the software is able to support an infinite quantity of virtual users. So think about Netflix when it releases its next big hit. Everyone logs on to watch. You don't experience any slowdowns. Your residents expect that same experience when they're registering their kids for a popular summer camp. There should be no virtual waiting room. So I know that was a lot of information at once. So I wanted to put it simply into four main indicators of identifying that modern SaaS technology. One is that the cost of the software is typically subscription-based and might include some type of free version of trial for you to test. There's no cost for upgrades, and if you remember from my previous slide, you shouldn't have to sit through upgrades because they should be happening constantly and without any work on your part or any monetary investment. Netflix doesn't ask you to upgrade when they're ready to release new shows. You just log in one day to find the show that you've been waiting for is finally available. And last but not least, with SaaS, not only do you not have to worry about the upgrades, but you also won't have to worry about security, compliance, and maintenance, because those are also generally covered by the software vendor. So now that we've reviewed a little bit about what SaaS software is, well, here's why it really matters to you. Adopting modern SaaS technology for your agency is a key component to creating stability right now around your operations and building efficient processes for a future-proof plan. It allows for your engagement between your agency and your residents. The reality of our current situation is that face-to-face interactions are going to diminish. People are going to have to find different ways to connect, and it's going to become all more important. You also want modern tech where business can carry on as usual, even in your inability to access that office. In order to build efficient processes and strategically plan for the future, you want technology that's going to provide you with real-time data, meaning that information is delivered to you as soon as it's collected. This allows you to make informed decisions based on what's really going on right now, because we all know that things can change very quickly. And the last one is a personal one to me because it's a big part of my day at Amelia, but modern software focuses on being very strong in one niche part of the business, and it will connect to other best-in-breed software to allow for clients to create an ecosystem of solutions for their business. So when we talk about engaging with your residents, it's not just about how often and by what means you communicate with them. It's also about giving them that online experience that you're looking for. So we talked about it earlier and their resident journey, but I want to take a step back here and in order to offer that seamless experience, modern technology plays a big part. So if we take a look at Beth again, who this time is looking to buy toilet paper from an e-commerce site we all know, like Amazon. Beth identifies her need for toilet paper, chooses her selection, probably based on quality, price, and delivery option. So pretty simple criteria. And once her selection has been made, she'll add the product to her cart and proceed to checkout. So modern technology like Amazon allows Beth to add multiple different items to her cart and only process one checkout. It allows for a variety of different payment options, and it's going to transmit that data in real time so Beth can get her product as soon as possible. Now, of course, your resident journey to register for an activity or book a facility is vastly more complex. To start, it's frequent that your residents must have certain criteria in order to participate to an activity. Being the right age group, having the right skill level, or maybe just being a resident of your community. Once this criteria is met, you'll want to gather as an agency as much information about your participant as possible to ensure their safety. So that includes allergies, previous injuries, emergency contact, dietary restrictions, and the list goes on. The complexity of your operations don't even stop there. You also have to take these activities and assign them to your staff, assign it to a location, ensure that the right equipment is going to be there on time. And then once at the payment stage, there's another series of factors that are going to come into play. You have discounts for citizens, you have promotions for the purchase of multiple activities for members of the same family, payment on several installments to allow for greater accessibility to your services. And then once the transaction is complete, it's only the beginning of the experience for your participants, who must then come to your facility, scan their membership card, have presence, participate in your facility and in the activity. So as you can see, the purchasing journey is far more complex than the purchase of a product on Amazon. But with modern technology, that same experience is possible for your residents. So when a resident arrives on your website, either on a computer or a phone, it should be as simple to access information about your activity and facilities. That means you want to ensure that your registration software is mobile responsive and that it can share information easily with your website. Nothing deters people more than jumping to a different portal or having to log in before accessing relevant information. Modern technology ensures that the complexities of registering for an activity and booking a facility is as automated as possible for the agency while keeping it simple and seamless for the resident. As Steve mentioned in the beginning, that behavioral shift is also very true for operations within your agency. So let's look at how modern tech can be essential for your day-to-day.
So with a SaaS ecosystem, you can manage all of your operations, your facilities, your programming, your staff, internal and external communications, all from one platform, which is available everywhere. And you can connect to it with a mobile device or a computer. You're no longer at the whim of local hardware, nor are you burdened by the responsibility of having to purchase and maintain that hardware. And so that also eliminates the need, or at least reduces the need for paperwork, and it simplifies and speeds up the retrieval of your records and data. And the real-time, the real-time nature of SaaS facilitates many things. One example, you're looking right now, the Productive Parks dashboard screen, where a maintenance supervisor can see in real time the progress of the work that's been assigned to his staff. But it also allows you to make short-term fiscal decisions as well as long-term planning.
And unfortunately, we're in a situation where financial strain is being felt across the board, and where many of you are probably in the difficult position of facing staff cuts and budget cuts. Although technology can't solve or dissipate the strain, there's still a few ways that you can leverage modern SaaS to create that sense of stability. The transmission of real-time data is incredibly important in gaining relevant data insights and ensuring that your agency is making informed decisions. At Amelia, we built a cost recovery module that connects to your registration, facility bookings, memberships, and where you can enter in all your costs. From this dashboard, you can analyze the performance of different service categories in relation to the targets that you've set. You can go even a step further and judge the performance of each activity, and then can get clarity to decide what activities need to be cut or adapted to better fit your reality. Of course, there's a notion of ensuring that the data you're receiving is in a digestible format, but it starts with the access to real-time information, which is key in modern tech. I'm going to highlight the word access here because it's really what's important. I mentioned earlier that modern tech should connect to other modern tech, and I'm going to let Mike tell you how and why that's possible. But before I pass it over to him, I want you to consider how we've all become accustomed to navigating app stores and picking the best apps for our day-to-day lives and to simplify our daily tasks. Why should it be any different when you're running your business?
Okay, so an API, it's an acronym that stands for Application Programming Interface. And a simpler way to say that would be a bridge between two software applications so that they can talk directly one to the other. And to explain that in a little bit more clear way, we're going to use an analogy of a restaurant. So the user of the software application, they're going to be represented by this guy that walks into a restaurant. And as he sits down at the table, a waiter appears in front of him and says, what can I get for you, sir? And the waiter kind of represents the user interface of the software. You sit down, you look at the screen, you have all of your menus, which is another analogy that was borrowed by the software world from the restaurant world. And so this waiter is you're gonna tell the waiter what it is that you would like. And so this guy, he wants to order the bread and cheese sampler plate with a bottle of the 2012 Coppola Cabernet. And so he tells this to the waiter, and the waiter says, "Very good, sir." And the waiter goes to the kitchen and delivers the order. Now, the kitchen only deals with the food. There's a separate location that is the bar that deals with all the alcohol. And so the kitchen, through an API, reaches out to the bar and says, "Hey, do we have that 2012 Coppola Cabernet?" And the bar responds, "Yes, we do. As a matter of fact, here it is, and we're going to send it over to you." And so now the wine is delivered to the same place where the waiter is going to pick up the bread and cheese sampler plate and brings it all back to the user. And the user is completely unaware of all of this happening behind the scenes, as he should be, and he's just happy with his delicious sampler plate and a bottle of red wine to wash it down with. And there's no need for him to be concerned with it. And the beauty is it all happened kind of magically behind the scenes.
Thanks for that example, Mike. So choosing modern technology that allows you to create that ecosystem of solutions working for you is a critical component in streamlining and optimizing your operations. It means you can finally forget about exporting Excel documents to then import them into another solution. It means that your crucial real-time data will be the same across all your necessary software. It means that the best user experience for your residents and your staff. We want to finish this section with more of a concrete example of an upcoming integration between Amelia and Productive Parks. So I'm going to pass it back over to Mike, and he's going to explain what that's going to look like and how it's going to streamline operations on the day-to-day.
Okay, thank you, Allison. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of things where we've worked with Amelia to take advantage of this functionality of an API. And one is for facility schedules. So let's say a maintenance supervisor is getting ready to assign some of his staff out to go do work at a given facility, but he doesn't know what events might be booked at that facility during the day. And so old school world, he's going to have to go over to the registration facility booking software and look it up and check it out, or else find a printout that someone's made of the facility schedule and look it up. But you can now in Productive Parks click on an icon and it reaches out to Amelia, checks that facility schedule in real time and pops it up on the screen so that you can see it. And kind of in the other direction, if you book an event in Amelia and it's going to require some work for maintenance, you can set it up so that it automatically triggers a work order on Productive Parks so that the staff person doesn't need to worry about emailing the maintenance folks to get them to be aware of this work that needs happening. It's also working for recurring bookings, like if you have a Tuesday, Thursday bingo event. And every Tuesday, Thursday, the maintenance folks have to come and bring tables and chairs and bring down all the bingo stuff. And so that can all be sent directly when that program is booked. And then the maintenance people are aware of it, both as a unit, and you can manage it in Productive Parks as this recurring booking, or you can manage event by event. In other words, if the Thursday night class for some reason gets canceled, that gets sent over as well, and then the maintenance people are aware that the event has been canceled. And then also working kind of in a flip side is that the cost recovery module that Allison showed you earlier, it can reach across to Productive Parks and pull in maintenance labor hours and any expenditures that maintenance had to incur to do work on a given program. And then that can be used in your calculation for ROI in the cost recovery module inside of Amelia.
So maintenance management is now more than ever a crucial piece of your agency's preparedness. It ensures that your day-to-day planning and tasks are being performed, that your entire year is scheduled out correctly, and it also helps you with long-term planning. Our new social distancing requirements have had an impact on your existing maintenance, but they're also requiring you to perform more maintenance in other new areas. NRPA just put a survey out which had some interesting results. And 56% of the respondees said that they had experienced an increase in the need for adding physical barriers to promote physical distancing. For example, adding fencing to playgrounds, or removing basketball rims, or tennis nets. Over half of those surveyed also reported that there was a 50% increase in the amount of trash left behind in their parks. 32% saw an increase in vandalism, and nearly a third of the responders said that they had to defer their day-to-day maintenance of facilities due to new budgetary constraints. So our situation requires that Parks and Rec agencies become even more efficient with budgeting dollars. And as we begin to open up our programs and our facilities to customers, we also have to be watching our spending. We need to become more efficient when spending tax and non-tax dollars, and utilizing software to track and report on these requirements can help you stay on top of a situation that just continues to evolve. For day to day, having the ability to monitor and manage your staff tasks in real time is critical, as we've spoken about. Agencies realize that they need more efficient and effective methods to manage, monitor these new challenges on a daily basis, monthly, annual, and obviously long-term basis. And your agency needs to become more agile with your maintenance operation as the situation evolves, whether you're opening up facilities or whether we have to close them back down if we experience a second round of shutdown in the fall or any time coming in the future. So the question you might ask is, how does this newer technology help us? Obviously, most modern software allows you to remotely communicate with managers and staff, as well as assign work to staff electronically. However, the real value of SaaS software is that it doesn't require any special configuration on your end. Your IT department doesn't need to go and install a client or set up VPN access to an internal server. SaaS software allows your staff to access information from anywhere, from the home, from the office, or remotely in the field. And this allows your staff to communicate real-time status of work to supervisors without the need to meet face-to-face, or without having to sift through a bunch of emails to figure out where that email on a specific task was. And of course, without the need to share physical copies of paper. Your supervisors and managers can monitor your staff work as it progresses throughout the day and the week, and your work assignments and task tracking can all be done remotely from a central dashboard. So you can see at just a quick glance the state of your weekly or monthly tasks. So if your agency can leverage the advantages of this new tech, you'll be much better prepared to pivot your operations as our current new normal, quote unquote, starts to become our normal. So software can also allow you to more quickly pivot between normal and social distancing operations. Using software allows your maintenance department to more quickly switch between normal and social distancing measures. And some specific examples are things like having the ability to easily modify an inspection to reflect changes required by a shutdown. Software can allow you to quickly make changes to your inspections from your desktop or from your home or out in the field on any device. Software also allows your staff to see these changes in real time, so you don't need to worry that all of your staff have a current copy of an updated or a modified inspection, or that they weren't aware that there was some one-time specific change to their daily task just for a specific day. Also, during social distancing, some tasks or locations may require more frequent attention and others may require less. So having your maintenance plan in software allows you to not only ensure your tasks are being assigned and completed as they need to be, but it also allows you to report over time. So you can start to begin to see patterns in usage, or you can more easily identify recurring problems and make adjustments to resolve them. So this insight is going to become invaluable in the way that we continue our operations, because in the future, we may very likely be required to do more with less. Software also allows you to do things like tagging or grouping your tasks, so their labor and expenditures can be tracked and viewed separately from quote unquote your normal tasks. This concept can be used to do things like track your modified work patterns during social distancing. One of our customers created a new tag in our software so they could tag specific tasks with COVID-19. And this is going to allow them to run reports in the future comparing time spent on a given task performed during social distancing measures and during normal operations. And one of the big benefits of this is having this data can really help you make better budgeting decisions and staffing decisions for not only the immediate future, but long-term planning. And it also provides real data when you're presenting your budget to your board or members of your community. So, this is going to assist with justification to budgeting changes. And obviously, all of this applies to your long-term fiscal plans as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike to discuss just that.
Thanks, Steve. So looking at this in a more long-term planning for the future way, it's true that well-maintained parks and facilities allow an agency to present itself in the best light to its community. This includes the parks and the facilities being clean and in good condition, but it also includes providing clear and well-designed long-term plans, which include, as Steve just mentioned, justification for budget expenditures, including maintenance, support, and expansion. And these well-managed parks and facilities allow your community to receive full enjoyment from its resources, as well as creating a sense of trust and pride in their parks and recreation agencies' stewardship and fiscal responsibility. And really, this high quality environment is built not like from one day to the next, but it's built across many years, and having good data is key to being able to develop this. Cost recovery analysis simply allows for better planning. For your programming, you can figure out what is the true cost of running a given program. It can obviously, you analyze your revenues against the materials costs and the rec staff wages, as well as the maintenance costs, including labor tracking and any materials that maintenance requires. Then the information can be used to create a cost recovery model, which can provide truly accurate data for better future recreation programming. And if decisions are made to subsidize the programming, then those decisions can be made based on very clear and accurate data. And as far as managing your assets and facilities, it's a fact that keeping assets well maintained is going to extend their lifespan. That's true from everything from vehicles to buildings. And so an effective short and midterm maintenance will assist in achieving this. But also, you can use asset replacement schedules to help to plan expenditures years into the future to avoid those surprises where you all of a sudden realize that something major needs replacement when you're planning the coming year's budget. And it also, having this in a software system allows you to change those plans on the fly when the circumstances dictate. And so combining an asset replacement schedule with a cost recovery return on investment allows staff to make more accurate budget decisions and projections, and make those projections valid farther into the future. And all of this just leaves you more brain bandwidth for all of the other things that you need to do on a day-to-day basis.
Choosing the right software can be extremely intimidating, so we wanted to wrap up the webinar with some concrete tips to help you identify that best tech. When we started this, we typed park and recreation software into Google, and 56 million options, articles, and reviews came up. Clearly, nobody has enough time to go through all of that, and that's way too much research. So we boiled it down to 7 tips to consider when you're shopping for tech. The first one here is functionalities built with you and your residents in mind. So that's, again, going back to that shift in behavior and thinking about what your residents are looking for when they're going to be registering for activities, and what your staff is looking for to be able to manage their day-to-day. You want the software that's going to be able to help you with that. Product development process. So again, here, this comes back to my technical slide, but you want to think about finding software where you don't have to do upgrades, where you're not responsible through resources and through monetary reasons to do those upgrades. They should be happening continuously without you having to do anything at all in daily. Support and implementation framework. So be sure that there's a support team to take on that software and to help you implement it. There should be a framework in place, Again, when you're implementing software, there's a lot of it that goes to playing but within your business rules, and it should support and be flexible enough to adapt to that. Fourth, data security and hosting. So again, SaaS technology, all that modern SaaS technology is taken care of on the vendor side of things. So this again shouldn't be something that's a burden to your agency. 5 is the ability to integrate with third parties. Again, I hold this one close to my heart, but you really want to create yourself an ecosystem to help streamline your operations, because it will create and it will give you that stability for the future, and create efficiencies across your staff and across many different parts of your agency. Price point and return on investment. I think that one's clear for everyone, but you want to be sure. And I think when you're thinking about having that real-time data, that's when you can really know, is it giving you what you need it to get? Are you getting from it what you need, and is your staff getting it from you what you need? And last but not least, open to conversation and questions. Again, you need your software to be adaptable for what you're living through now, what you're going to go through in the future, and you should be able to have those conversations and questions with any tech company that you're looking to shop from. So with that, we're going to turn it over to you guys for the question period. So again, on the panel, on the GoToWebinar panel, there is a question section where you guys can type in your questions, or there's a little raised hand feature that you should see. I believe it's red. You can click that and I'll be able to unmute you on my end, and then I'll give you the floor. So we'll give a couple minutes for questioning starting now. So I have one from Shannon here asking whether the webinar will be available afterwards. So yeah, we will be sending that webinar, the recording of this webinar, out in the next couple of days, so you'll all receive a copy of it. I have another question here. What are some real-world example of agencies you have seen leveraging tech to get back to that new normal? Will, do you want to take this one? I know you've been speaking with a lot of different agencies lately.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously, I'll have to give it from the perspective of the work that I do, which is talking about SmartRec with a lot of our agency partners and potential partners. But I think one of the, just off the top of the head, one of the things that I've seen that's interesting is agencies trying to figure out how to manage, social distancing in places like fitness centers. Typically, you sell a membership and, you might have 1,000 members, and at any given time you have a couple hundred in the building. How do you better track that? So what I've seen some interesting strategies is to essentially have slots in the day. So like similar to what you would do with like a yoga program where people go, 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or something of that nature. And then leveraging the tech, be it ours or something else, to essentially have people reserve those spaces that they would like to be in the gym, so they can always ensure exactly how many are in there. And then there's also scan in, scan out technology, leveraging apps and things like that to minimize interaction between staff and the residents, to control and ensure that the right number of people are inside, know exactly who's in the building or in the facility at any given time, in addition to ensuring that those people are checked out before they let the new people check in. So that's something that I've seen that's kind of cool, and definitely thinking outside the box with regards to how can we get, say, a fitness center reopened to the public faster than what they would have otherwise been able to do.
Thanks, Will. Mike, Steve, do you guys have anything to add on to that?
Sure. We've gotten direct feedback from several of our customers that specifically said that the software and the abilities that it has allowed them really to kind of hit the ground running with this, because having that software in place allowed them to essentially send their work to their guys via their phones with instructions. The guys went to the facility, grabbed their vehicle, went out to their parks, did their jobs, marked their progress and completion of those tasks on their mobile device, and then they went back to their homes. So that's from several clients, we've heard that specifically. And as I mentioned previously, the ability to tag your tasks, it's a little bit more long-term planning, but you're going to have some good insight after we're through the woods on this and be able to better prepare for the future.
And I'll add that you can then just kind of reverse all of those processes to bring things back towards the normal. You know, it's like the software helped them when the crisis came upon us, and then they can just kind of do everything backwards and control it from a central location to help them return to whatever normal winds up being.
Thanks, guys. I have a question here from Lonnie. I believe it's in reference to API and the potential integration or the integration between Amelia and Productive Parks. But is the flow able to go back to the rec software and update maintenance booking? I believe, Lonnie, that's what you're asking. Mike, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take that one. As of right now, it does not, but we are certainly planning on doing that. The functionality is there. We just wanted to get the flow one way first. And it does return in the sense that the person who initially, like if you're a rec supervisor and you're in charge of a certain party rentals for a given room, and you book a party rental and it sends the information to Productive Parks, and Productive Parks, it generates a work order. Well, Productive Parks will send emails to the originator of that manages this party room, and you'll be kept up to date with it as far as when it gets assigned out, who it gets assigned to, what day they're supposed to come and take care of it, and what their status is on taking care of it. So it's kind of like partway there, but we're also talking about having it right in the software where you can actually, you wouldn't even have to look in your email. You would just be able to see that within the software.
Thanks, Mike. I have a question from Jessica here. What are the biggest challenges you see an agency facing when considering new technology? In quotations here, she puts the real nitty-gritty issues you see staff struggling with. I think, Will, you can speak to that, and I'm sure Mike and Steve, you can too. So I'll give it over to Will first, give Mike a breath.
Great, thanks, amazing. Jessica, I think that's a great question. And it's one I run into a lot. I mean, I think the nitty gritty piece, and who was it? One of the gentlemen from Productive Parks who talked about just the challenges with budgets and all of that right now. So even if there's a desire to, make a change and you found something great, how do we ensure that we can communicate that to other stakeholders? The thing that I've been doing a lot of work with, people I've been working with, is really just around doing a better job and just a bit more effective job of documenting cost of status quo. And I think that's something that's missed a lot. What does it cost you if you're paying for a software that you still need to do a lot of manual tasks? Those are extra costs that aren't always accounted for. And if it takes you 70% of the time you're doing something manually, but with a new piece of technology, that's down to 20% of the time, all of a sudden, you've found a way to do something more effective. It also helps you scale. There's definitely going to be something I hear a lot about is that, we need to do more with less. How do we do more with less? And then figuring out areas to automate and areas to shave a few seconds or a few minutes off of processes makes a huge difference. So that's been a key part of a lot of the conversations that I've been having with different agencies.
Thanks, Will. Mike, Steve, do you guys want to add to that and some of the challenges that you guys have seen?
I think both of us can probably speak to that. I guess I will start.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is really appropriate anymore, but previously getting your staff to adapt and accept new technology was one of the challenges that we heard in the beginning of implementation. Interestingly enough, as we implement, I mean, you could picture the old school maintenance guy who really doesn't want to deal with the phone. So that's one of the things that you should be prepared for. However, we've always done our best. We worked in the field for 20 years, so we really do know what these things are like. So we've tried our best to, work around those and assist people with that. But surprisingly, adoption's been fantastic. Another component that I would want to make everyone aware of, when you're implementing a new piece of software, obviously you've got to get all that data into the system. So choosing a vendor that will support you in that process is critical. What we had decided to do a long time ago was take over the physical input of all of your data into the system. You know, you guys have your regular jobs. You're doing them on a day-to-day basis, trying to carve out 5-10 hours a week to gather all of, the names of your parks, all of the amenities inside of them, all of your staff, all of your inspections. It's quite a bit of work. So finding a software company that will be there for you and, basically just try to take some of the heavy lifting off of your shoulders as you implement this is another key component I would look for. And Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I think that covered it really well.
Thanks, guys. Shannon has a couple questions here. She said they're potentially interested in rec registration software. She's asking if we can show any of it. Unfortunately, Shannon, we can't, but I know within your other question, you were talking about some changes managing social distancing, requiring reservations for swimming lanes and group exercise classes. So maybe I can let Will speak a little bit to what he's seen so far in terms of managing those changes within the rec software. And then we can certainly show you, Will can show you that software a little bit more on a one-on-one basis. Definitely. Will, take it away.
Great, thanks. Shannon, amazing question. I think this is an area where I see software helping a lot, frankly. The ability to take your swimming lanes and have them be, in essence, rented online. So if I'm looking for some exercise, ensuring that, I'm grabbing the slots that are available. So these are all pretty standard things that technology can help with, including us. On the group exercise component, I think it's very similar to what I just described with regards to the fitness center. Overall, there's an ability to ensure how many spots you're allowing to be sold or able to have. Let's say the new restrictions are 5 in a group class. Cool. You restrict by that and allow people to book them. And again, with the right technology, it can be 100% automated. And just ensure that the interactions are minimized. And during this crisis, it means a little bit less contact. But once things go back to normal, it means your staff are doing more community building type activities. I really believe this a lot, that it's not really a value add to process a registration. It's just something that needs to be done. But your human resources are by far your most valuable, and people like interacting with people, and it's really great when those interactions are more heartfelt and geared towards things that matter to them. So there's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
Thanks, Will. And so far we have one last question here from Susan. What agencies are currently using your software? I'm not sure specifically which one you're referring to, so I'm going to throw the question to both of us. Mike, Steve, you guys start. Maybe you want to give a couple of examples for Susan.
Well, because we're based in the Chicago area, we had started out with a lot of clients there because we had contacts, and then through the grapevine that in Illinois, the Parks and Rec grapevine's very strong and active. But we have the Downers Grove Park District, the Tinley Park Park District, the Dundee Township Park District, West Chicago Park District, and then we've got agencies from Arizona, Texas, Bemidji, Minnesota, Colchester, Vermont. So they're kind of spread all across the country with a concentration in the Chicagoland area. And we'd be happy to send out a list of contacts if you want to talk to any of those people. I know that some of them are on this webinar today. So, Will?
Similar to you, I think it's fair to say we sort of got our start in Texas and Illinois, working with a few agencies there. So Park District of Oak Park, Lindenhurst Park District, a few cities in the Dallas area, working Grapevine, Louisville, working with cities in Ohio, Massachusetts, et cetera, et cetera. So sort of all over.
Thanks, Will. I have Jeff here with a raised hand. Jeff, I'm going to unmute you right now. I see you're muted on your end as well, so you'll just have to unmute on your end and the floor will be yours. Go for it.
Yeah, that sounds real good. I just wanted to reiterate what Steve was talking about when he was talking about steps and trying to choose a software. We just went through this transition in the last 6 months to Productive Parks for our parks operation. And one of the more important things I felt like up front was including the staff in making that decision. It wasn't easy, but it's an important part of it, because I think if you can get the people who are going to be the end users to be part of that discussion, not necessarily to make the final decision, but to be part of it so that they understand what the goals are and what the potential benefits are from it. I think that that's an essential thing. So, and yeah, we're one of the ones that that they just mentioned that, yeah, we're using Productive Parks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
My pleasure.
All right, it looks like we're down for a question. I don't see any more raised hands. So I think we'll be wrapping it up. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining. It's been really great. Thanks again, Productive Parks, Mike, Steve, you guys are awesome. Will, thanks for attending for the question period.